Hello YouTube, this is Frugal and welcome to another episode of Frugal's Hangar. Now today we're taking a look at this, which is the RWDESIGNS, the RW standing for Rob Wilson, RWDESIGNS DHC6 Twin Otter in X-Plane. I actually bought this when it was released because I'm a big fan of Twin Otters. I do enjoy flying the Aerosoft one from time to time, and I thought it would be great to have a Twin Otter in X-Plane. I've done a couple of flights with it, and I'm actually going a little bit above and beyond with this aircraft compared to what I would normally do. In the flights I've done, I did one flight with the SciTech yoke and all the switch panels. I did another flight after that with the GoFlight yoke, but without the switch panels. And today I'm going to try and fly it with the SciTech X55. The reason I'm doing that is I want to see how this handles in all different configurations, because I didn't get the impression from my initial first flight and even my second flight that it felt, what's the word, all that realistic. I don't know how to describe it. And I said in a comment, I think, in the news show, there's something missing with it, and I still have not been able to put my finger on just what it is. This is the exterior livery. There are, I think, 6 liveries. There are 3 variants of it as well. There's a Tundra wheels version, a normal wheels version, a ski version, maybe there's a floats version. I can show you actually. Let's go up here. Let's go to open aircraft here. Here we go. So we have the float version, ski version, Tundra version, and normal version. And there's a bare metal one, British Airways, British Antarctic Survey, Flybe, Maldivian Air Taxi, which we're currently flying right now, and the Royal Canadian Air Force. Not the best livery in the world. I think from the pictures I've seen on Google, it does do justice. It is pretty accurate to the Maldivian Air livery. It's just not that nice a livery, but I didn't really want to fly a British Airways flight or something like that, or a Flybe flight. We're going to try and do the tutorial flight. The aircraft comes with a manual which describes how the bulk of the equipment in the cockpit functions and what it does and all the usual stuff. Pretty easy to follow. And it also comes with a tutorial. And the tutorial is a little flight from Tenerife to El Hierro Airport. So we're currently at Tenerife and I'm going to follow the tutorial. It is nice to fly. I did have fun flying it. I did find that when I wasn't using a switch panel like the SciTech panels that I have, it was incredibly awkward to tune radios and stuff like this. Although this is an X-Plane 10 aircraft, it doesn't have the scroll wheel support for tuning radios that I found. Maybe there's an update going to be released soon. I hope there is, which brings that. So that was a little bit of a quirkiness. Also found that if you try to operate the autopilot out of expected parameters, so you're off course, for example, or you're way too high or way too low or something like that, the response of the aircraft under autopilot felt really quite unrealistic. It was very jarring, very violent as it tried to re-establish itself. If you do fly it though within expected parameters, fly it properly, it does feel like the Aerosoft Twin Otter, which is the only Twin Otter experience I've got. I've never actually flown the real thing. And the defining feature, I think, of a Twin Otter is it's a very stable aircraft, a very placid aircraft. It feels a little heavy, but not crazily so, and it's just a nice aircraft to fly. It's great for doing those little cargo hops or island hopping like we're about to do. Let's go into the cockpit and take a look. Here's the interior. Now I've set up some views. I'm not using Track IR today, so I have set up some views with the built-in X-Plane view system. So this is the pilot and command view, and then we can go up here to the overhead and you can see 2 throttles, 2 props, 2 fuel levers, great. And the first stage of the switch panel up there, and then higher up, whoops, that didn't work, higher up is the full panel up above. And this is really well modeled. I like what they've done with the modeling in here. It's very flat, it's not very plasticky and reflective as X-Plane textures can be from time to time. It looks pretty good. It looks well worn as well. This is an old aircraft. It's a workhorse aircraft. Going down here, everything down here has the same sort of effect. It's very dull, which it should be. It's grimy. You can see there's texturing here showing grime and dirt of a workhorse. And overall, it's actually quite convincing. There are no jagged lines. They've done a good job on getting Rob Wilson has done a good job on getting nice curved dials, 3D dials as well. They're very smooth. They respond properly. If we go on over here, we got the X-Plane 10 GPS in here, as well as the avionics stack down here, which does everything you would expect. It's pretty simple to manage. Autopilot, we have an altitude alerter here, and then the autopilot we engage up here with these buttons. So heading hold, nav hold, approach. altitude hold, indicated airspeed hold, which is great for climbing, and back course. And this is one of the things I actually like about this. It's a very classic autopilot, so you can't just tell it climb to flight level 120 and follow this navigation course. Well, actually you kind of can with the nav mode. but you tend to do things very, very methodically. So you set your climb speed, and then you say IIS hold, and the aircraft will hold that speed, and if you increase the throttle, it will climb faster, and if you reduce the power, it will climb less fast, you know, that kind of stuff. I like those aircraft. I'm a big fan of the old school way of doing things in terms of autopilots and radios. What else is there in here? There's a circuit breaker panel down here which does not work. I haven't noticed those things down the bottom here. I don't know what they are. Okay, ram air ducts here, ventilation fan there. I mean, it's very well modeled down here as well. It looks great, it's just non-functional. I don't know if that's a big deal. For some of you, I know it is. Not so much for me. If I'm flicking circuit breakers, then I'm not really having a good time, to be honest. I know for student pilots, then that would be a key feature to have, but it's not something I particularly look forward to. Anyway, following the tutorial, I have loaded this up with an hour and a half's worth of fuel. Let me just take a sip of my drink. So all that remains is to start powering this up, and you'll see the next something of a disappointment that I had, I think, with this aircraft. So if we go up on over to the overhead, we want to switch the battery into the battery position, which you do by clicking and dragging, I think. Here we go. Awkward to do that. Again, no rolly wheel support. If I roll the mouse wheel, you can see I zoom in. It would have been nice to have that just on the scroll wheel. So we're on battery now. We flick the DC master switch now to its on position, which would be that one. So that's just a simple click, which is strange. This one you got to click and drag it, and this one simple click. What else do we need to do? Turn on the position lights and the beacon lights now. They're way up above, up here. So there's the position lights, and the beacon, I guess that means anti-collision, so we'll turn that on. We've done the fuel, so I'm going to skip to the next page. Next page says we're going to be taking off to the east. He says on runway 12, we're going to be taking off to the east. I'm not sure what the weather's doing right here, right now. We could possibly look that up with ATIS. I think we probably will. And then we're going to, after we go east, we're going to be turning right to fly down the coast using VFR, climbing to 7,000 feet, and then intercepting the Tenerife Sur, Tenerife South VOR DME, which is Tango Foxtrot Sierra. We'll then fly direct to that, and then we will fly from that to La Gomera VOR DME, which is Lima Golf Mike, before then switching over to the GPS. The tutorial here is showing you the various modes of flying, basically hand flying, VFR flying, radial interception, obviously using the radios, and then GPS navigation at the end. And it does actually say you could rely on the GPS to do all of this, but he doesn't want to in his tutorial, which is just fine for us. So now we go ahead, and having established power, we're going to turn on the power knob on the GPS and get that thing working. So we'll click on the C here, up comes the GPS. Then we're going to turn on the stacks down here, the radio. And what we should do at this point is tune into ATIS. So I'm probably going to cut the video here while I quickly fire up a web browser and look up the ATIS for here. Okay, welcome back. Now the ATIS here is 118.57. So let's go ahead and tune that in standby COM1. You only have COM1. There is no COM2 in this. You only have NAV1. There is no NAV2 in this, which is a little strange as well. But anyway. Again, no scroll wheel support, so you need to find a click spot and start clicking frantically. And I hate that. I really hate that. We do have roll wheel support now. Oh my god. And I had that Cinema Verite turned on, which is a great visual effect, but it makes the camera move. And if the camera's moving, again, it's even harder to go and click on these click spots. So 118.57. And it just occurred to me, now look at that. We can't go 5.7. We can only go 50 or 75. That's a heck of a jump, isn't it? 50 to 75, 0.25 difference every time. Look. That could be a bit of a problem in terms of flying somewhere like Pilot Edge or even VATSIM. You can't tune those minor frequencies. No, I'm not missing a click spot here. And if it sounds like I'm being rough on this aircraft, I'm not. I do like the aircraft. It is good fun. It does fly nicely. I do enjoy flying it. I just think it could be better. But you have to take into account that this was developed apparently by one guy, Rob Wilson. And I think for a single-man team, venturing out on his own, forming his own business, selling aircraft for X-Plane, why the hell not? It's pretty good. I just think it could be better. So let's try 118.5 and see if that gives us ATIS. No. Okay, so let's switch back. And let's try something else here. In fact, let me make sure that this is... Oh gosh, no, we only have on and off. We don't have a volume knob there. So let's try 118.75. That's really not right. The ATIS is 118.57. I don't think we're going to be able to get it. Alright, so we'll just pray that the wind is in the right direction for takeoff, since we can't do anything with that. Moving on, he now wants us to turn on the ADF. So we'll do that. And wants us to tune 410 on the ADF. So, see if we can do that. 4. There are 3 knobs here, I think. No, still 2. My God, I hate these click spots. No, see, I hit the wrong one. Oh, how very, very, very frustrating. Let me try and change my camera angle. See if that helps. Yes, it does. I can get that minor click spot. Just about, if we're very careful with the mouse. Alright, 410, and I went too far. 410. Great. And then the tutorial wants us to go and flick the left RMI button to its in position. That would be in as opposed to out. So that's all done, so the radios are all set up. Now we can tune the Tenerife Sur VOR DME into the nav standby. I have to scroll back in the tutorial to find out what that is, which is 116.4. We're going to put that into nav standby, apparently. That's already over there in nav standby from the last time I tried to run this. Great. What else have we got now? Last thing to do is to set our cruising altitude of 7,000 feet, which we'll do over here. And again, no scroll wheel support, but you can see that icon means you can click and hold. And then you just have to figure out which way do I move the mouse to make the numbers go down. And apparently you move the mouse vertically up to make the number go down. Very strange, and even then I didn't get it right. There we are. Okay, so before we go back to the pilot view and start the engines, let's clear this message here so you can see here we are. We're all good there. We'll change the range on this to get a better display. Good. And we'll go back to our pilot in command position like so and get ready to start the engines. To do that, all we need to do is flick these 2 engine fuel booster pumps on here. So we'll flick this one up. I think that's off. My gosh, it's so hard to do. See, it says they're off, but actually no. Is that off or on? Oh my God. See, it says off test, but I think these are on, so we'll leave those on and we're all good. And then we need to double check our power levers are at idle. Well, my physical power levers are at idle, but let's just check on the overhead here. Yes, they're at idle. And move the fuel levers all the way forward. So we'll just grab on these. I don't know if I can right click. No, just one at a time. And then finally, we're going to turn the igniters on, which are down here. So we'll flick both of these on. 1, 2. Now there's a 3-way switch here for starting. So we're going to move this one to the left, I hope, by clicking it and dragging it. That should start the left engine. Which didn't quite work. So let's try turning this pump here off, since up is indicated as off. And we'll try that once again. So looking straight up here. So there's a bit of a quirk for you. You can see the shadow from the prop. The engine is now starting, so we'll just monitor these gauges. Let's go to a better view to do just that. You can see prop RPMs coming up. Oil pressure has come up nicely. Oil temperature is starting to rise. Great, so let's turn this one off, since it says off is up and then test is down, but okay. So that's done, and we'll go up 1 and we'll click and drag this to the right to start the right engine. And once again go and look at the dials and the gauges. Now it sounds okay I don't think it sounds as good as the Aerosoft one in FSX and Prepared, but it does sound okay. It's just a little weak on the outside. Let's go outside. Almost a heavy bomber kind of drone going on, which I don't think is accurate for a Twin Otter. I could be wrong. What do I know? Let's go behind it, see if the sound changes, if we have positional sound. Kinda. Some of the whine goes away as we move behind the props. And the prop animation is great. Everything there looks really, really good. But we'll take it. And again, bearing in mind developed by one guy, as long as it flies properly or well, it shouldn't matter too much. Well, it doesn't to me, but it might to you. Now, I don't know what the barometric pressure is, so I'm going to look at my handy chart that I have now on the other screen, and the elevation of this airport is 2,062 feet. And if we go down here, whoops, to our dials, you can see that we're under that. So let's go ahead and set our barometric pressure that way, which again is a click and a drag. Oh, this is so tricky to do. So if that's 2,100, we're going to put it right about there, and that should be somewhat correct in terms of the barometric pressure. Now let's look at these warning lights, see what we've got. If I have a view for that, which I don't, so I'm going to slide across and take a closer look. What do we have? The generators are not on, and we have pneumatic low pressure as well. So let's go on up and make sure our generators are on. Landing lights are off, igniters are both on, which is great. DC master is on, external is on battery, that's fine. And the next overhead up here, so generator. I know from the Aerosoft one we need to go to reset. And then on. And then reset. And then on. While we're here, we will also turn on the no smoking light, the fasten seatbelt light. We will turn on our taxi light, which is there. Sorry, I had a hard time finding that. We'll turn on the pitot heat when we get to the runway. What else do we have up here? De-icer boots, we're not going to need those today. Prop de-ice, we're not going to need that on today. I think, in general, we are good. We don't need the entrance lighting turned on at this point. Bleed air is off, and I don't understand why that is. I would think that needs to be on. Doesn't really tell you in the manual, in the tutorial, but obviously what I just did fixed everything. So the generator warnings have gone away. The pneumatic warning has gone away. We should now be good. And we'll check outside, make sure our taxi light is on, which it is. There it is. Wonderful lighting effect. And then we can get back into the cockpit and start to taxi. Now we are going to depart to the east, and looking at my compass, that would be to our right. So I'm going to taxi out to the left and join the runway and just take off in that direction. And then try to keep up with the tutorial that I have here. And it says, taxi out to runway 12, use flaps 10 for takeoff if you want, but it's up to you. Once you get there, turn on landing lights and strobe, of course. Line up with runway, should see the RMI needle pointing straight up. So let's not worry about that just yet. Let us instead reset my view here, knock the brake off. That did nothing. Brake was off, actually. Okay, good. And we will gently increase power, I guess. I haven't moved the prop levers at all. It hasn't told me that unless I've missed it. So they're still in the feather position, which is a little wrong. Or at least it feels wrong. Like I said, not an expert on this. I do enjoy flying the Aerosoft one, but I wouldn't say I put up enough time in it to call myself the internet's answer to everything to do with Twin Otters. I think actually having those props on feather at this point isn't a bad idea. It's taxiing quite gently, and I think if I were to increase the props, that would not be the case. Now it's hard with this scenery. I did pick up this scenery from the X-Plane World Scenery Gateway, which is a wonderful resource. You basically go there as a website and tell it I want this airport, and it gives it to you. And the scenery I got doesn't have 3D buildings, it just has runway markings and taxi markings and stuff, so I'm guessing a little bit as to where I am. I'm fairly sure the runway is over here, and that I am going the right way. I've only done 2 other flights in this, as I said, and this is the first one with a joystick, which I think is a good idea, and I might do that a little bit more on some of my videos, is to fly these add-on aircraft with a joystick, because I know a lot of you do. so it would give you some indication of what the aircraft's going to be like to fly with a joystick. And the problem with doing a flight like this with a joystick is, of course, that you have your right hand on a joystick and can't typically let go, and you need your right hand, or most of us do, to grab our mouse to tune radios and stuff like that. So it does put a bit of an emphasis on trimming the aircraft and making sure it's well trimmed in order to be able to take your hand off the primary flight control to go and trim a radio. Now, do I want to risk going all the way out here to the end and turning left? I think I will. That is the runway on the left. I don't have an airport diagram in front of me, which I think in hindsight would have been a really good idea. But we're doing alright. We're not going too fast at this point. Only 10 knots, I think that is. 18 knots, so we're just about on the edge of fast. Let's come off the power a little bit. 18.1, 17.5 now. And I think I can make do with going all the way to the end of this taxi line and turning left there to get right on the end of the runway. Because as you saw, we don't have the ATIS, so I don't really know the wind direction at this point. And there are pop-ups I can use in X-Plane to get that. This is something people bring up a lot about X-Plane, is the UI is really ugly. And my somewhat pithy answer to that is, well, I like flying, I don't like messing with the UI, so it doesn't bother me, because you're not looking at a UI right now. And that, for me, that's a little bit obsessive compulsive as well, in that I won't even bring up the UI if I can help it for stuff like this. I should have been able to bring up ATIS. Those brakes were a little savage. Should have been able to bring up ATIS, and the fact that I can't is, oh well, I'll make do without, rather than pop open the display menu and start grabbing data out of there. Okay, landing lights are off, now they're on. Let's go up one more here and turn our strobes on. Good. Now, flaps are here. You have a nice flap indicator right here. I'm going to put these down to flaps 10. Oh, no I'm not. Oh joy. It is a full motion flap. You don't have notches. So make sure you got buttons bound, which you can hold down or repeatedly whack in a hurry to get the flap setting you want. Now it says in the tutorial at this point, line up with the runway and you should see the RMI needle pointing straight up. If not, double check the ADF frequency and make sure the left RMI button is pushed in. So let's line up here. And no, it's not pointing straight up at all. The left RMI button is pushed in. We are on 410. Let me whiz on over here to this display. Make sure it's on ADF, that will help. There we go, now it's pointing straight up. Good. That's a Frugal error. Okay, good. So it's saying when you're ready to depart, advance the throttles slowly all the way forward and start to pull back when you reach 65 to 70 knots. It does not say in the tutorial that you should probably have your prop levers all the way forward, and for some magical reason they have advanced all the way forward. I'm not sure how that happened. It wasn't me. No doubt the smarter people among you will be rewinding the video now to say, actually Frugal, they were always all the way forward, you just didn't notice. So we are lined up. I'm just going to read through the tutorial and make sure I know what I'm doing. As my speed gets to around 90 knots, click the indicated airspeed button. So that's going to be our IAS hold, which will hold our climb speed. And a green triangle should illuminate. Great. Then we can click the heading button. Really? Oh, no, we've missed something. I need to turn the heading bug on the HSI to the ADF vector on the RMI. So there's the ADF vector, so we're going to turn that heading bug now to the same, which is basically that away. Great. So let's see how this works with a joystick. I'll just run the joystick through full range of motion here. We're going to increase power. And this is where the sound really starts to get let down. Start to pull back on the yoke at 65 to 70 knots. Which is now, and up we go. And it's actually very nice with a joystick. I'm surprised. Now this is the problem. I need to trim this for 90 knots because it does say at 90 knots reach over and click that IAS button, and I can't because I'm busy flying the aircraft. So let's try and trim this. That will kind of somewhat do. So now I can reach over here and hit IAS, and then I will hit heading. And we're now under autopilot control, so I'm going to bring the flaps up a little. Literally a little. We could look up at this point and turn those landing lights off, which we'll do. Now the issue I have... What is this? There we go. I hadn't switched that up. So IAS is on. There we go. Heading is on. Great. I had that switch in the wrong position. So now it's going to hold down 90 knots. Great. As you click the IAS button, the autopilot will take a reading of the aircraft speed and either fly a climb or a descent. Wonderful, that's all working just the way it should. You now have the choice to monitor your climb and manually level off at 7,000 feet by hitting the Alt button, or, as this aircraft is equipped with the United Instruments Altitude Alerter, you may simply push the Alt Alert button on the main panel, which I will do. And that's basically climb and level off at 7,000 feet. This will automatically capture the altitude selected in the altitude selector window. You can also turn off your taxi lights. Well, we have to turn off the landing lights. I'm going to bring the flaps all the way up at this point. And we will go ahead and turn off the taxi light as well. So the aircraft's going to climb up to 7,000 and everything is good. I will adjust the heading bug here to match the ADF. And you can see, flying within parameters here, I did everything right. Somewhat, and it's doing everything right itself. You know, it was a fairly gentle turn there to get back on course. It wasn't a crazy one. Everything is good, and it's flying really quite nicely. And we're climbing up. Now I do want to reduce power, and I do want to change my RPM as well. I don't have a control bound for this, so this is not going to be fun. Let us first bring back our power, and we'll move this back. This is hard to do now because you can't see what you're doing. Try to get those two. Oh, now they're both pulling back together. Okay, that's helpful. We'll set a reduced power there so as we don't overtax the engines. Now as we fly over the ADF, we're going to adjust the heading bug to take us down the coast at 220 degrees and maintain visual flight rules. So stay out of clouds as much as we can, double check the frequency, and the active nav window is set to 116.4. Well, it's not. Now it is. That needle's moving. There we go. So we just flew over that, so we're going to change our heading now to 220. We have leveled off at 7,000 feet, and we've got the active nav frequency set to 116.4. If you are electing to manually capture the altitude, which we're not, we're done. Once at cruise, pull the prop levers back about 1/5 of their allowed travel and slightly reduce power, which I just did. This should allow the engines to run more economically while decreasing prop noise for passengers. In 2 to 4 minutes after our turn down the coast, the HSI should capture the VOR. Using the OBS knob on the HSI, select your course and adjust your heading bug to follow the vector indicators. So we're going to keep an eye here now until we capture that VOR. So everything's looking good. Let's pop outside and take a look at how this thing looks from the outside in the air. There it is. The sound is really, really very, very weak at this point. But it is flying really nice, and this is what I was saying in that news section. From my time with the aircraft, when I did that news piece on this, something is missing, and I can't put my finger on it, other than little quirky things, like you don't have scroll wheel support to adjust frequencies or any of those knobs, which is a pain and an annoyance. Other than that, and the sound being weak, I can't put my finger on what's lacking. I guess it just feels a little bit too easy, and I really don't know why on that. I have tried overtaxing the engines and haven't really been able to. But maybe I just needed to be a little bit more aggressive with it. I'm not going to try and overtax them today. Just my point of view. And again, I don't mean to be too harsh towards this aircraft. It is fun. It is a fun plane to fly. It does do everything it's supposed to do. It is nice to be flying a twin Otter. It just feels a little odd. So we're just looking down here now for this needle to shift. There it is. So we're going to adjust our course now so we fly direct. Whoops. And I got a choice here. I could go nav at this point. I'm not going to. So let's just do that. This leaves us on something of an intercept course. And then as this needle starts to move, we will adjust our heading to follow it. It's very hard to put in fine adjustments here because it's that click and drag thing. That's a little bit closer. So let's start turning around a little bit now. You can see it's a very, very smooth turn. I like that. I don't like jarring autopilots, which this can be if you're doing things a little bit out of step. In fact, let's go a little bit more to the left here and really see that needle shift. Because what it's saying is you can now set the next VOR in the standby window once we are on that direct course. And then it says wait 15 minutes, which obviously I will cut, which I don't normally do in FROOGLE'S hangar, but for the length of this flight I think we probably will. There we are. So let's shift over now. Which to me, honestly, this is a somewhat strange way of doing it, but I can see why they're doing it this way, because this aircraft, this model of the aircraft only has nav 1, it doesn't have nav 2, so you do need to kind of plan ahead a little bit and do a lot of heading holds as opposed to nav holds to make sure you're in the right spot. We'll go a little bit to the right, so we did turn too late, I think. So the next thing to do then is switch the nav radio over to 116, like so. It should take 15 minutes for us to reach the Tenerife Sur VOR, which we'll check on the GPS. And as you pass it, click the nav frequency. The HSI should show you the course is too far left. Well, it's already going to do that. Oh, I don't need to make that active. Okay, so we'll leave that here. Great. So we can actually get a nav hold. It's a silly tutorial. So let's click on nav. There. And let that fly the proper course. And I will cut the video here and I'll see you once we hit that VOR.